else if it takes longer.
Chair acknowledges Jim Moostis.
I notice there's been continually an issue on this agenda, and it's about the marijuana opt-out. And I noticed that we were going to have a committee of the whole on November 14th, which was so we were going to discuss the opt-out part for marijuana in general, legalization of cannabis. I should use the word cannabis, and the discussion of opting out would be there. And then at a land use committee, there was a fairly lengthy discussion.
The right-of-way, they have requested to remove that variance, so we're looking for a motion and a second to remove that item under new business.
So they're no longer looking for the variance?
That's correct.
Okay, second.
Move and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
A quick question, are we allowed second remain on the right of way?
Brian, you want to?
Sure. It currently is on the right of way. Yep.
Right.
The sign currently is on the right of way, and if the variance is being removed, it's going to stay there. But at the same time, with our improvements coming at Gower Road near IE, it's going to end up getting gone anyway.
It's going to go anyway.
Yeah.
I just had some concern about remaining on the right of way, just because it's there. And I don't know what the circumstances are. If we bought additional right of way, or they violated our right of way initially.
Well, not to get into too much detail, but they started to rebuild their entrance, and that's what allowed us to take a look at the property, and that's how we noticed that the sign was on the right of way. So.
But it didn't happen where the sign was there, and then when they went through a process, they dedicated part of the property?
No.
And when they dedicated it, then it was all of a sudden in violation?
What happened was that we used to be an old AT&T remote facility, and it happened to be when I was a permanent engineer. And when they went for revamping it, they had to dedicate the right-of-way, and somewhere down the line, somebody didn't realize that that additional right-of-way was dedicated when they built the sign.
I guess my point I want to make is you can't remain on the right-of-way. You cannot use our right-of-way, no matter what the circumstances are, in my view, because it's a slippery slope. We have these type of things happening at the forces there all the time. We have to tell them, get off our property, or get off the right-of-way. But if you're saying it's going to be reconstructed, it's going to be gone eventually, you're saying, no problem. So.
Couple of years? Is it?
It'd be at least a couple, 3 to 5, whatever it takes to rebuild the overpass over IE.
Some things have been impressive to see somebody, place their sign on right away. So, can we all do that? Can we all say, hey, well, I put it on the right away, sorry. Okay. I'm just making a point here.
Okay. Other new business.
So it's been moved in second.
I believe we voted on it, and then Jim hit it, made a statement.
After the vote.
Yeah. Okay, good. Under new business, item number 1 is also being asked to remove from the agenda, so we're looking for a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, number 1 is removed. Number 2, authorizing approval of professional services agreement for supplemental design engineering services agreement. Cedar Road over Spring Creek, County Board District 7.
Move.
Move second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carries. Authorizing approval of professional services supplemental agreement for right-of-way acquisition. Several parcels of property along Bell Road at the intersection of 143rd Street, County Board District 7.
Moved.
Second.
In discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Number 4, authorizing supplemental funds between the County of Will and Chi-Cat Pipeline for reimbursement for relocating facilities along 131st, 5th Street, rather.
Move.
Second.
First, motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Authorizing an agreement between the County of Will and Northern Illinois Gas Company for the reimbursement for relocating facilities on Francis Road at the Parker Road intersection.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Authorizing approval of professional services agreement for right-of-way acquisition services for several parcels of property along 80th Avenue from 191st Street to 183rd.
Second.
Moving second, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Intergovernmental agreement for emergency vehicle preemption system at the intersection of Francis Road at Parker Road.
So moved.
Second.
First and second. Any discussion? And can I, that is being, are we being reimbursed for that by the fire district?
Fire district pays for that.
Oh, the fire district pays for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Lastly, granting ingress and egress for a vacant lot.
Second.
Perfect. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Director of Transportation discussion. Brian?
Okay. All right, I have a couple things to just point out, not necessarily add to it, but in your packet, I believe there's a connection to a web link, which includes the state MYP, which is multi-year program. This is more than 1,000 pages, and I think Jeff also kind of chewed it down for you to make a smaller version. It's just the Will County projects. And furthermore, there's this packet which will even identify the costs on various roads in the multi-year plan. But in summary, over the next 5 years, there's over $2 billion of work associated with this in the state plan, and about half of that is on I-80 alone. So just want to kind of point out some of those facts. But otherwise, this has been published. I've seen it in the Farmers Weekly Review already, so it's kind of already been put out there even since it went on the agenda.
$75 million interchange.
On 55,
Yeah, I thought this, I got on the radio this morning.
is that the new one at Lockport Airport?
Yeah, it might be. I mean, the governor was touting it, so he was out there, so.
Nick, were you present at that?
Yeah,
Do
there
you
was
wanna-
kind of a last minute, the governor
Yeah.
came in yesterday and just talked about Capitol Hill generally, but he talked about, that is one of the projects in the Capitol Hill, the airport in 55. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it was, they said that was like 175 million.
I'm not sure the amount, but that probably sounds right.
Yeah.
It's actually, if you guys have this summary sheet, it's on sheet 2, showing that as 90 million
90.
at Airport Road / Lockport Road.
Yes.
Close.
Give or take.
There's always
Yeah,
more
yeah.
connected to it.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of investment coming in Will County.
Can I say something real quick? That's okay.
Obviously, there's a lot of layers to all this stuff, but just to keep this committee apprised, we have been meeting periodically, and you see Judy's in the room too, with the mayors out in Eastern Will County, and we've been talking, and Jeff's been part of those, connections between 394 and 57. And one of the things you've probably heard, that's what I thought you were talking about first, Jim, was 57, there's a bunch of money
Well, they
programmed
mentioned 57 this morning.
for an interchange there, which, I mean, look in your crystal ball as far as whether that means something bigger than just the interchange. But as far as county government's concerned, we're focused on working with municipalities to get an east-west route, and this is what the mayors have asked for, truck routing to get them from 394 to 57. How we get them onto 57 is still to be determined, but that interchange could be part of that. So if that's going to go forward, we would try to tie into that and use that as a truck route, because Eastern Will County doesn't have a good east-west truck route right now. And if we can structure something and try to push trucks to it, that's kind of our overall effort across the county. But that's just a microcosm example of how we're working. So nothing's set in stone, but we'll keep this committee apprised and work with the board members out there to keep moving. But that money has been kicked around, but supposedly the money's going for an interchange at 57, an interchange to connect with 50, which is parallel to that, and then some arterial road work and some other things, utility relocations. But we look at it, at least from the executive's offices, there's economic development occurring on 57, which is good, and closer to the interstates is better than further away from the interstates. So if we can support development that's along the interstates and you can have easy on and off, that's better than going through township roads, municipal roads. So,
All right. Thank you, Nick. Judy, would you like to comment?
Yeah, so I do want to comment on that. We have had meetings in Eastern Will County, and all the conversation that has been going on doesn't take you anywhere near Eagle Lake Road. It's the most ridiculous amount of money to be spent. Because if you go to Eagle Lake Road, it's not, if you go west of 57, it's nothing but gravel. And if you come east of 57, you can't get over 57. You can't get over the railroad tracks there. You can't do anything, and it would take you to 50. There's nothing at that particular intersection. You know, my comments that I've heard, Rick Bryant's been down at the Kankakee County Economic Alliance area group, spoke with them and said, you know, if we build an interchange, in my words, to nowhere, then perhaps the airport developers will come. That is complete ridiculous use of funds from the state. The planning was up north between Money, the village of Money and Pauling Road is where they were looking at bringing a new route for the trucks to come through, which would put them just slightly south of the village of Money, still north of Pauling Road, north of Offner Road, making Eagle Lake that 3rd mile south there. So it doesn't make any sense, and I know that there was conversation at times to take that funding and use it for other truck routing in Eastern Will County. I don't know where that sits. It's on everybody's radar to build this interchange to nowhere. It's in the newspapers. So,
I mean, I'm not throwing rocks at Springfield because they do a good enough job on that, but it's the Eagle Lake Road, I think, was a mistake, honestly. I think Offner Road has always been the road they've talked about, but
it had been.
we're not, Judy and I have talked about this, it's not crystal clear. They may have to change that, but I don't know that they haven't done phase 1 yet, so it's not like it's coming tomorrow. Even if they were going to move forward, there's going to have to be a lot of work on that. So that's number one. And the other thing, though, to Judy's point, this is an opportunity, if there is money available, that could support some of our local, potentially, I'm not saying they're going to do it, but we can ask to support some of our local improvements to do the truck routing, because that is something the communities would like. And if there's money available, rather than spending on something that maybe some of us would say is less valuable, maybe we put in something that's more valuable for the local communities and something that they support and can get behind. So that is something, and I think, Judy, we agree on that? Or
We agree on
so
that.
that putting that money towards improving, because it's really, we're looking at Creek Monee Road, because that's probably the best option. Some of the other roads are more up and down or just have other challenges, but there is some add of new sections around to get around Village of Monee, kind of a bypass, and there's a concept there that could work, and then the connection to 394. Maybe that's something we bring back to this committee with a map.
Yeah, so we need to
look at it. But it's very early, but this is the effort of what we try to do at the county, I think collectively, the board and the executive's offices, bring communities together, try to find mutually agreeable solutions, and get them on board with it. And we've had 4 or 5 meetings now, and we've made progress and got those communities focused on a kind of a unified vision for some of that stuff.
But isn't Eagle Creek or
Eagle Lake Road.
Eagle Lake Road, isn't that south of 394?
So
And after it
394
turns into 1, and it's really far south.
394 is east. Eagle Lake runs east-west.
Right.
394 runs
394 runs
south.
north-south. Right. What
Right,
I'm saying
so
is
yes,
they don't
it's-
intersect, because isn't 394 already done and turned into 1 by
394
then?
ends and turns to Route 1.
Route 1.
Yeah,
So you're really
yes.
far south. So you're
Really far south.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And that's why it's such a ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
It's the interchange to nowhere. You heard of the bridge to nowhere, this is the interchange.
Right, I'm just trying to get my bearings. I know it crosses 57, but it seems like it's very south.
All right, thanks. Jim?
Well, then my next question is where, when we're looking at this area, we're addressing it in our transportation plan. I don't know what stage I would think. If not, do we need to go back, include some of this in our, whatever, 2020 plan or whatever plan we're on, 2030, or we're beyond 2020, but I mean, 2030, 2040. And should we start incorporating this in our transportation plan? I assume it's already in there, actually. Or should we put more of an emphasis on it, especially if you think that we need to give maybe testimony or lobby that the funds would be better spent on maybe some other efforts that deal with truck traffic and truck routing. So, so I'm going to assume it's in our transportation plan, but should we be putting a different emphasis on it, or should we be pushing it up more to the near term in our plan? So, I don't know if you can comment on that.
We can bring that to...
Let's bring the plan back and look at
Okay.
it. But I will say, Jim, that we've asked, and there's not a concrete position on a number of these big projects that's public. So, but we continue to meet with, I know Jeff does and his staff, but we continue to meet with IDOT staff also periodically and ask them, where are you at on this, where are you at? Because without the Ileana, Peatone-Wilmington Road becomes the alternative, and people are using that now. And Jeff, I think, I forget the numbers, but Jeff just did counts. It's pretty high on truck traffic between 57 and say 53, and he just did it to see where we're at. That's going to become the alternative, so we're going to have to, and we know that, that's in our plan, to spend more money on that. So, but...
Well, I know I get phone calls on Peatone Road quite a bit.
And 53 and
right.
That intersection that's been forever.
Well, if the committee wishes, we can maybe ask Jeff to come in next month and talk about that particular area and bring up a map so everybody's aware of what we're talking about. And Judy, go ahead, Judy.
So I just wanted to say, so to me, what makes more sense is Mooney Manhattan Road that's where Amazon is. We have 2 truck stops on the east side. We have a brand new one going on the west side. We probably need an interchange improvement there. At Peatone-Wilmington Road, on the east side is the village of Peatone. There's a gas station, little gas station, and McDonald's. But on the west side, there's plans to put in another station for trucks to come in. I'm not thinking straight. That interchange is horrendous. If there's any money spent off of I-57, it should be at Peatone-Wilmington Road, because that entire interchange needs an improvement rather than a brand new interchange in between these 2 interchanges that already exist off I-57. Because if you would go to Eagle Lake Road, and you are all welcome out anytime, let me know. I'll give you my phone number, my address. Come on out, I'll cook for you a little barbecue hot dogs. I will take you down Eagle Lake Road. There is nothing on Eagle Lake Road anywhere.
It's not, but that's not, Eagle Lake Road, even though it's in the bill, we've been told that was a mistake, which I don't know how you make that mistake, but it was a mistake.
But Offner Road is also, there's nothing at Offner Road.
It was just a carrot for those airport people. I mean, it's just, I'm saying it, you can disagree with me, but when I looked at it, like you said, I'm like, really? I mean, that's where they want to put it?
Well,
you
isn't
know?
doesn't that abut Boltfield,
No,
Eagle Lake?
no.
We'll bring the maps, because you'll see, it'll make sense when you see the plan.
We'll ask Jeff to comment on that next month.
The plan though, and this I'll say this, you'll see where the proposed
It's near
airport was,
Pauling Road.
and where, this was an interchange, Offner, Eagle Lake, somewhere in between, yet to be determined. It was, in some people's mind, that was the entrance to the airport. But there's I-57 now where there's developments occurring there, and to Judy's point, and we didn't say this already, Manhattan-Monee Road, excuse me, is that interchange probably needs to be upgraded, and Peatone has expressed concerns about their interchange. So there's interchanges there that, just like interchanges in other parts of the county, need to be upgraded as growth continues to happen. And why we're doing this effort is to get them focused on compromise or kind of unified position so that we can lobby. Because if it's not going to happen tomorrow, but if we don't start fighting for it now, it's never going to happen. And that's why Weber and 55 took a long time to get to. We chased federal money, we put our own money. It's getting done now. These interchanges are going to take some time, but we should be focused on them. And the whole goal of all this planning is to say, we're going to make these improvements. What is it supporting? What is it doing? So that we are spending our money wisely, because we don't have an endless supply of money. But anyway, we'll bring it back.
Yeah, while we're on the topic, I was going to wait for Chairman's report, but Jackie Trenier, the chairwoman of the Legislative Committee, had sent out an email to me and a couple other chairmen, and she's asking for input at the Legislative Committee. So if any member here has any issues with transportation and you want to reach out to Jackie and have them lobby for anything, Judy.
I'm on that committee, yes.
Yeah, so that's always an option too.
Before we get to yours, I just want to go with some comments. I don't know if you want to wait till after your comments.
Let's get through the state's attorney and the reports, and then we'll go to comments. Okay. Well, we'll move on to state's attorney discussion. Chris had said he had nothing. Do you have something for him?
Something for him.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
I'm going to get back to this right-of-way business. And I know it may seem petty. You know, the reason I'm not crazy about pulling it off, because at least there was a decision made by this board to grant them to leave it there. In the absence of that, who decided it can stay there?
Well, it was put in originally without the county's knowledge, so.
Well, that's my point. My point is usually we have them remove it. You're on public property. So we were going to give a variance. So there was a mechanism to say, okay, we acknowledge it, we're going to leave it there, and we could say you're going to leave it there until the reconstruction or whatever. But now, it's just going to stay there. Now we're aware of it, that it's there illegally.
That was.
You know, we may not have been aware of it before, you know, ignorance there's a certain thing to say about ignorance. So we didn't know. So my point is that who decides now, if we're not granting the variance, who made the decision to leave it on the right of way and not have it removed?
Nobody made an affirmative decision, but it's a tacit approval, is what it is.
Explain tacit approval.
Well,
Did we ignore
without
it?
without taking
any
action to remove it, by default, it's approval of a nature, and it makes it tougher to defend if someone, the real liability, it's out of the line of sight. It's not a line of sight problem, if I understand the facts correctly, but it is a hazard if someone, an errant driver, slams into it and gets seriously injured. It makes it tougher to defend.
My point is that I guess my point is that we are now, at least it appears to me, that we have now taken a position we're just going to ignore it when it's there. Nobody has said it's okay. You're saying, well, we ignored, we're giving approval by ignoring it, ignoring that it's on right away. You know, I know this, and that has nothing. The reason I'm bringing this up has really not that much to do with this. But if we don't think that there's encroachments on our right-of-way all through this county, because my guess there is, you know, and most of it innocently, it's not done intentionally or whatever, you know, and of course we see people put temporary stuff on the right-of-way all the time, right? And we remove it if we know it's there or somebody complains. So my concern is that once you start down this road of we're going to ignore it, how was it decided we're going to ignore this one? So when do you decide when you're going to ignore it and not ignore it? I'm pointing this out because I think it could potentially create a problem in general. And I wouldn't have probably had a problem giving them the variance. At least there's an acknowledgement by the board.
But now the
So why did
gentleman's
we
not
pull it
asking
off?
for a variance, right?
But why did we pull it off? He's not asking.
He's not asking for a
So
variance.
if he's not asking for it, then he should be told it should be removed. I'm just saying, you know, that you can't just ignore it. You know, once you know it's an issue, once you know it's there, you can't. That's all, I'm just pointing out, and I think the state's attorney's office should take another look at this and come back and maybe advise us on the action that we're taking at this moment, and whether it's the most appropriate action for the county long-term, yeah. That, you know, becomes, it does become, you know, we talk about this, you know, random and kind of trenches, whatever we call it, you know, that you can't do that. You know, you have to be consistent. So, I'm just concerned that, you know, he withdrew the variance, and now we're gonna ignore it.
I believe, I met with Jeff last week, and if I'm not mistaken, his stance is to have that sign removed. Am I right on that?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, so
And then
maybe,
tell us that.
maybe, well, Jeff's not here, he's on vacation, but
Oh, is that true?
if, I can reach out to,
Mr. Chairman?
yes,
I just talked with our permit engineer, and the reason why it was taken off the agenda is the applicant did not want to go through the variance process, and he is just going to take down the sign.
He is, okay. Well, that makes it easy.
This just in.
okay, great,
I think that's maritime.
perfect. All right, thank you. All right,
Sorry for wasting the time of the committee.
all right. Nothing else under the state's attorney's discussion. Monthly reports, there's 3 reports that I'm sure everyone has read over. Is there any questions with anything in any of the reports? No questions, good, okay. Reports by committee members. Anyone from the committee have anything to add?
I'd like to make comments.
Comment?
Report. And report.
You're on,
Okay, I'm on. Leave
Jim,
it.
go ahead.
They're just leaving out permanently. You know, I was probably gonna wait to make these comments later, some other time. But since we talked about a number of issues of, you know, out eastern and looking at an east-west truck route and some of the improvements that needs to be done, I'm gonna bring up the gas tax. And, you know, as a general principle, for me, I'm not a big tax guy. I just don't believe in taxing people unnecessarily. And, you know, I think people make better decisions with their money than the government can make, but certainly certain levels of taxation are necessary for the common good and the safety of the people. So, and so I'm going to tell you a little bit of my position on the gas taxes. If we zeroed in, we've talked about Eastern Will County today and the struggle, and we know, you know, I kind of live out that way. I consider myself more of an Easterner than a
We don't consider
Westerner,
an
you know.
Easterner.
And you know, of course, but if you're not on that Indiana border, they consider you, you know, an outsider, you know. And I used to kid them and say, is England Indiana? You know, but anyway, but certainly there's a lot of infrastructure that we need to do for the Will County economy and the type of economy we have. Well, and certainly I recognize that. And as we're talking, you know, well, let me skip forward. So in general, I'm not for taxes, including a gas tax. Even though it amazes me, the reason I'm sometimes willing to be supportive of a gas tax is because the consumer doesn't seem to benefit from not having a tax. I live in an unincorporated area of Will County, and I basically live on the Will-Cook border, and I can get gas cheaper in Cook County than I can in unincorporated Will County. I mean, so obviously, the price of gasoline, the taxes aren't reflected in the price of gasoline. I mean, it's whatever they can get. And I'm always reluctant to say, well, the only one who's really going to benefit is the oil companies, you know, because they're gonna take, they're gonna take advantage of not having the gas tax on and stick it in their pocket, not put it on to the consumer. So that's another area that, you know, that concerns me. But I do think that we're being a little premature on the gas tax. We're getting some additional money in. I would like to see us get a little more firmer on what we're going to do in Eastern Will County. Let's refine some of these plans. Let's put the number on it and say, okay, we're going to do this out in Eastern Will County. This is going to do the truck routes, and it's going to be $40 million. I'm just throwing out a number. Clueless what it would cost, but and really come up with a program and say, this is where this money can go. You know, I'm not interested personally on the 2050 plan to give me every project that's in the 2050 plan. It doesn't motivate me to say, yeah, okay. I'm looking to see results maybe a little earlier on, very specific. So I want to say that I think we should sit back on the gas tax. Let's refine the project list of how we would do it. And, you know, I think it's a little premature. I think we can wait till next year to impose the gas tax. And I will be supportive if it's done at the right time and we're zeroed in on the project. I just want to say that.
All right.
So, I think it's important that we really address our infrastructure. You know, so for me, my base is probably the best thing for me to say. But I do think that timing of this is important. And I know it's going to come through this committee, move on. You know, let's take our time. Let's get it right. Let's get the amount right. And maybe there could be some additional support.
Okay.
I want to throw it out.
Thanks, Jim. Nice comment. Anyone else from the committee? Oh, Mimi, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Now I have two. Same topic. I had a community meeting with a number of my constituents on Monday, and the teacher and me came out. We did a pre-test. We had everybody answer questions about things when they came in, and yeah, I did. And then we had the whole conversation about gas tax and a number of other issues that we're discussing at the board. And then at the end, I asked them the same set of questions again. And it was actually really interesting to me. At the start, I had some people that were in favor of the gas tax, some people that were against, and some people that said they needed more information. And by the end, every single person in my 24 or so meeting was in support of a gas tax. They understood that we have a shortfall in what we need to do necessary projects over the next 20 to 40 years. They understand that transportation and infrastructure is the building block of the first fundamental building block of a healthy economy. And I was sort of surprised, to be honest, that everybody was fully on board. You know, also that I was very heartened to see our citizens engaged and listening to the information and the facts and being willing to think about hard choices. Nobody likes taxes, but boy, we sure do like the things that taxation provides to a civilized economy, like safe roads and being able to draw in business and homes and residents to a safe and thriving community. So I just wanted to let everybody know that my constituents were roundly supportive of the plan.
All right, thank you. Ray?
Thank you. I think the constituents in your district probably would be supportive if they knew that all the money was going to be spent on the roads.
Actually, I prefaced it in my meeting by telling my constituents that pretty much none of the projects were in our district.
Right,
So
right. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the individuals that go and pay the gas tax and they know that they're gonna pay the 4 cents, if they could see that they're gonna get something in return in the county level, not just in your district or my district, they would have a different view than if they were told that the money may not be put on the roads. And that's one of my biggest hanging points. We want a bipartisan bill here, or bipartisan vote. One of the big things that's going to hang up a lot of people, I believe, on our side of the aisle is the fact that when you increase the gas tax and your MFT funds go up, but you don't have a lockbox on the RTA funds, essentially, we may ask the residents to pay additional tax for additional infrastructure, and not one additional dollar may be used for roads. So we have to make sure that if the gas tax goes through, and if we want to vote on something that's truly beneficial for the residents with infrastructure, we have to make sure that all the money that comes in does stay in there, because the way the law is written right now, and the way our ordinance is written, is that we can utilize and go into the RTA funds for things like public safety. We could take it and we could transfer it over to a different department. We just need to make sure that if I'm selling a gas tax in the community to improve road infrastructure, that actually the roads do get improved and not, siphoned over to pay some overtime or something else. That's my only point.
Thanks, Ray.
Can I make one other comment to that?
Sure.
Because I actually meant to say that in my comments. So thanks for bringing it up. But let me say that, and I have talked to I have talked to the speaker on this, and I think that we brought back that we do have an ordinance that's currently a resolution, I should say, that's currently in place that says that the RTA will be used for roads and capital projects only, and so cannot be diverted. Now, I would suggest that we reaffirm that, and maybe even take it a little further, and maybe take those RTA monies, create a special fund that's for RTA that can be for roads and capital only. I mean, so now you remove it in the budget. There has to be additional ways of strengthening that, so it just doesn't change at the whim of this county board's change, right? I mean, so I think the intent was always, and the speaker said to me, well, the intent is to keep the money in for roads on the RTA. But I think that we need to strengthen that so people feel comfortable with it. So we're just not switching out dollars, so that any gas tax is actually additional money to go into infrastructure in our roads. And I know that our county's really kind of diverse, but when you look at areas where, like the eastern part of Will County, to the southern parts of Will County, a lot where you have these intermodals and so forth, we need a lot of investment in those roads out there, which makes me want to be supportive, but I have to be comfortable that this is really going to be all plus for roads and infrastructure. So I think we should maybe bring that up again. Maybe I would ask the state's attorney's office even to talk to say how do we strengthen that, so everybody feels comfortable. So that's another thing I think we have to do.
Okay, thanks. Judy, comment?
I can wait for public comment if you're done.
No, it's
Okay.
It's cool.
I have a couple things, two things that I'd like to say. One is regarding Both Fields. So Both Fields sits between Eagle Lake Road to the south and Offner Road to the north. The difference is, if you were to drive Eagle Lake Road and Kedzie to that intersection, or Offner and Kedzie, it is an extreme difference. When Both Field was put in, it was required of him to upgrade the intersection at Offner and Kedzie. Eagle Lake Road is a tremendous disaster in many spots as you drive east to west. But Offner Road is a fairly strong road. It's all asphalt the whole way, concrete spots. It's well built. There's a big difference between an Offner Road and an Eagle Lake Road. So while it might be near Eagle Lake Road, it certainly is not a road anybody would take to go there except for somebody like myself. That's the first thing I just wanted to clarify. The second thing I wanted to ask Mimi, I know when Lori Summers and Amanda Cook had a gas tax presentation in my district, I was just, at that meeting, I know for a fact that there was no mention in the presentation of the fact that we currently get approximately $9 million from the state tax. With the additional tax, we're going to get an additional $6.2 million. Nor was there any conversation about the money that we get from the RTA that we use for roads. Or the conversation that we'll be getting an additional approximate $23 million over the next 6 years. Were those things brought up at your meeting?
Yes, they were.
They were. Okay. I just needed to know that because they weren't at mine.
And actually, could I go, well, go ahead.
No, that was it. That was it.
Go ahead. Yeah.
There was one point that brought up a question someone asked that I had not thought of that I thought was actually a good thing to be talking about, and we're certainly not going to come up with an answer to this right now. But one of my constituents mentioned, the tide is really in the process of turning towards electric vehicles, and there's some sort of 50-50 mark, I don't know, 15, 20 years down the road. And they asked, okay, if we're getting all this from motor fuel, when we start having more electric vehicles, where are we getting the funds to maintain our infrastructure? And I think that's something we need to start discussions about, because the technologies are changing, so we have to abandon old way of doing things and start embracing some new ways of doing things so that we're ahead of this, so that we're not suddenly finding that we're losing all of our funding for infrastructure, and because we know this is coming. So I hope we're maybe working on a plan.
I know the state's already hitting the electric vehicle owners pretty hard, but how much of that trickles down to the county?
Well, maybe we can ask the legislative committee to bring it up. All right. We have another comment?
Yeah, real quick, so I think down the road, what we'll need to do is get some kind of regulation that allows us, that as electric comes in, move the tax over to diesel so that the trucks bear the burden as electric cars come in.
Trucks are gonna be electric too.
That'd be a while, not in our lifetime.
They're on propane.
Well, they're already, they're already.
Yeah, but they're not gonna be electric for a while, if they are.
Thanks, Mark.
There's gonna be a lot of batteries. A lot of batteries.
Electricity.
That's all I mean. Driven trucks.
Julie?
Okay, I recently had my town hall. It was very well attended. There was not one person in that room that does not want a referendum. They want the ability to express their voice on a potential new tax. So I also support that. I want them, even if it's a non-binding referendum, I want them to have the ability to tell us how they feel, and then we can vote accordingly. But this is, I don't know what the process is. I don't know how we go about it, but I would like to see that done. And then as far as electric vehicles, I had thought, well, there is no energy cost that I guess we can tax, although I thought maybe somehow there would be. You could, so either apply that type of a tax or determine some type of a mileage tax. But there is a need and a desire. You have to have them help to pay these expenses, as well as the people who are using gasoline.
All right. Thanks, Julie. Do we have any comments from the public? Mr. Nick Palmer.
I'm not here to talk, but I don't have a spot on the agenda, so I have to...
We'll make one next time for you.
So just real quick, a couple things. I just want to follow up on what you mentioned earlier about the state and federal agendas. We are in the preparation stage of that, and I think one of the things, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school to say this, we would like to engage the committees more this year, just because there has been discussion about prioritization of projects, and after last year, or this past year with the capital bill, obviously there's been a lot of funding for transportation projects. That said, we are also doing a lot of work. Our freight plan, we're building on that with the Joliet Intermodal Master Transportation Study. We're also doing the CMAP study, which some of you hopefully have heard as we're talking to committees. But this is an opportunity for this committee and the board as a whole to look at what projects we really want to focus on, because in the past, and I've done this for almost 15 years now, we've prioritized Weber Road, we've prioritized Laraway Road, we've prioritized 80th Avenue, we've done different projects in different areas of the county, but this, we've tried to balance it with different projects from other areas so that all board members can feel confident that their districts we're focused on them. But I think with both the state, there's still some money to be allocated or just advocate for, and with the federal agenda too, we want to talk about that. So I think all this discussion today is good, and I think it does give us an opportunity to review not only our 2040 plan, because that's what we're on now. The CMAP's on 2050, we're on 2040, it's just the way it works. But we also have our own multi-year plan where we're focused on various projects, and those, Jim, to your point earlier, I guess, is maybe 2040, 2050 are too far out, but our multi-year plan is the projects that are in our lifetime and in our time here at the county for all of us. So we may want to focus on those and our process to get funding for those, because one of our challenges has been when we go after federal money, Tiger grants, build grants, whatever they're going to call them in the future, not all our projects are eligible because we haven't done all the preliminary work, which costs more money, but sometimes it's worth spending the extra money on the big projects so that they are eligible. This week, I think it's the build applications are being awarded. There's a possibility one of the projects in Will County may get, I don't know that for sure, but I've just heard there's a rumor maybe. But if not, we're going to keep chasing those. So I think this committee, and I asked to put it on the agenda, maybe we can at least touch on this committee and maybe have regular updates on those studies, because I think those are important, those are actionable plans, and it does have a huge impact, whether you're for or against the developments, it has a huge impact in all our areas. The other thing I just want to comment on, because I've been part, and this is the blessing of the curse, I sit in a lot of meetings on these issues. Motor fuel tax is obviously a diminishing revenue source, hence why they raised the fees. We've been at 9 million for a long time, not really growing. We are adding money, which is great because we have plenty of projects, but there has been talk about what's the long-term funding source. And one of the things that I heard a few people kind of touch on this or dance around it is, if you don't do gas tax, what do you do? Do you do vehicles miles travel? Are they VMTs? They put the device and track your mileage. A lot of people don't like that because they feel like it's an invasion of privacy, whatnot. But I'll tell you, and the tollway people have told us this, your transponders track where you're at, and they take pictures of you when you go to the toll booth, and it's been used in divorce proceedings, which I think is kind of funny. But
wrong committee.
But yeah, sorry, that's public health. But the other thing that I found very interesting is I had the opportunity earlier this year to go with the Joliet Chamber to Washington D.C., and we went to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and had a briefing by some of their policy people. They actually are supportive of VMTs, which I was kind of surprised by, that the chamber was supportive of that. But that is the future, I think, because it's a user tax and you can choose whether you drive or don't drive or how many miles you drive. But other than that, I don't know. But the state is imposing a higher fee on electric car licenses. That's a step in the direction of making them pay their fair share. And I know Mark and others have brought up about diesel fuel. There is a higher price being paid by diesel fuel buyers, so we are spreading the cost around a little bit. Some would argue not enough, but all those are good conversations. I think this committee, it would be a good place for us to talk about those, because you guys focus on these projects throughout the year, and that would help us in developing our federal and state agenda. So when we get to big projects, people don't say, well, why are we supporting this? I don't like this. Well, you have your opportunity to say yay or nay, but we're going to do that. We need to do that over the next few months because we're putting the agendas for next year. So,
okay, good. Any other public comment before we move on? Chairman's report. Just one thing. I know Mark attended last night. IDOT is holding a public hearing tonight from 4 to 7. They want to discuss their plans on phase 1 of I-80 from Ridge Road to Route 30. So anyone interested in learning about that, it's tonight, 4 to 7 at All Nation Church of God Community Life Center here in Joliet. And That's it. No executive session. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Anything else that takes more
Chair acknowledges Jim Moostis.
So, I notice there's been continually an issue on this agenda, and it's about the marijuana opt-out. And I noticed that we were going to have a committee of the whole on November 14th, which was said we were going to discuss the opt-out part, or marijuana in general, legalization of cannabis. I should use the word cannabis, and the discussion of opting out would be there. And then at a land use committee, there was a fairly lengthy discussion that the land use department was going to do no work on the cannabis issue until we decided if we were going to opt out. Now all of a sudden, the land use department has come out, well, here's it's going on the land use agenda, I'll be there, of course, but I mean, there was a discussion, including the state's attorney's office recommended that we don't do any work until we decide whether we're going to opt out. So now, the whole opt-out opportunity seems to be disappearing here. It's not on this agenda, it's not on committee of the whole has been canceled. So now I have to say, who's deciding this? Because I have to tell you, it's a decision of this committee. No individual, no other chairman, no anybody. The committee decides this committee decides what's on the agenda. And I will tell you that over 20 years ago, then the board made it very clear to me, because I was the chairman, that I would put everything on this agenda that was up to the committee would have the opportunity to put things on the agenda. So I have to say that before we start voting on land use and before we start talking about taxes and so forth on cannabis, which I support whether we opt out or not, so you have to understand we can only opt out. If you take no action, you're in. And it seems to me now there's being an attempt to take no action. So that's my concern. I think this committee has the ability to add it to the agenda, to one of the committee agendas.